The first morning of training began with lines forming under a pale sky. Recruits adjusting straps, checking watches, and quietly comparing gear. Most of them were brand new boots, stiff leather still uncreased, soles untouched by dirt. Among them stood a young woman whose boots looked nothing like the others. The leather was scuffed, the edges worn smooth, and the laces had clearly been replaced more than once. They looked old, tired, and out of place. The comments started quietly. Someone whispered that she must have bought them secondhand. Another joked that she wouldn't last a week with equipment like that. A few laughed openly, nudging each other as they glanced at her feet. She heard it all. She simply tightened her laces and stared forward, refusing to meet their eyes. The instructors noticed, but said nothing. They watched the group with calm, unreadable expressions, allowing judgment to spread unchecked. The woman never explained herself. When asked why she hadn't upgraded her boots, she shrugged and said they still worked. That was all. As the formation moved out, her boots struck the ground with steady rhythm, confident and practiced. She didn't rush. She didn't drag her feet. There was something deliberate in the way she walked, as if each step mattered. While others worried about appearances, she focused on balance, breathing, and pace. No one knew it yet, but those boots had already carried someone through far worse than this. And they were about to do it again. As the days of training wore on, the jokes about her boots slowly faded, replaced by something harder to ignore. While others struggled with the constant pressure, she moved through each drill with steady control. She never rushed, never wasted energy, and never complained when the weight of her pack cut into her shoulders. The old boots, worn and familiar, seemed to move as naturally as her own feet. Gripping the ground without hesitation, she spoke little, answering only when spoken to, and even then with short, calm replies. When a teammate fell behind, she adjusted her pace to match theirs, offering quiet encouragement without drawing attention. She never took credit. She never sought praise. To her, discipline wasn't about being noticed. It was about getting through the day and being ready for the next one. The instructors began to watch her more closely. They noticed how she handled pain, how she checked her equipment out of habit, how she instinctively positioned herself during group movements. These weren't things taught in the first weeks of training. They were habits learned over time, passed down, repeated, and refined. Late one evening, as recruits cleaned their gear, someone finally asked her why she still wore those boots. She paused, fingers brushing the worn leather, then said quietly that they reminded her how to stand when things got hard. No one laughed this time. They didn't understand her answer, but they felt its weight. The boots weren't just equipment. They were lessons, carried forward with every step she took. The pressure peaked during a long field exercise, designed to exhaust everyone at once. Heat pressed down on the group, packs felt heavier with every mile, and patience wore thin. Small mistakes turned into sharp words, and frustration moved through the formation like a spark. By the time they reached the final station, tempers were already close to snapping. That was when one of the recruits pointed at her boots again. Sweat-soaked and irritated, he laughed and said it was obvious why she moved the way she did. She was clinging to outdated gear because she couldn't keep up otherwise. A few others joined in, tired enough to forget restraint. The words landed harder this time, not because they were new, but because they came after days of silence. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply knelt down to tighten a loose lace, movements calm and controlled. As she shifted her weight, something heavy slipped from inside the boot and hit the dirt with a dull metallic sound. It rolled once, catching the sunlight before coming to rest between them. The laughter stopped instantly. Everyone recognized it before anyone spoke. A Medal of Honor lay in the dust, its ribbon faded but unmistakable. The air seemed to thicken as the group froze, unsure whether to move or speak. Even the instructors stepped forward, expressions changing from indifference to focus. She picked up the medal slowly, brushing dirt from its surface with her thumb, not hurried, not dramatic. Her face showed no pride, no embarrassment, just respect. In that quiet moment, the weight of their judgment fell away, replaced by something far heavier. Understanding. No one laughed now. The medal lay in her open palm, its worn ribbon swaying slightly in the heat. One of the instructors stepped forward and asked, carefully, where it came from. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at the boots, then back at the faces watching her, and finally spoke in a steady, even tone. The medal had belonged to her grandfather. He earned it decades ago, in a fight that never made headlines, in a place most people couldn't find on a map. The room shifted as the instructors exchanged glances. They knew the weight of that medal. They knew what it meant to receive one and how few ever did. She explained that her grandfather had trained her long before she ever stepped onto a base. He taught her how to move, how to endure, and how to stay quiet when others were loud. The boots were his. He wore them through deployments, through losses, and through years of service that asked more than they ever gave back. She didn't speak of heroism or sacrifice. She spoke of lessons. How he taught her that strength didn't announce itself, and that respect wasn't demanded, it was earned. The instructors nodded slowly, their earlier indifference replaced by something closer to reverence. Around them, the recruits stood silent, understanding too late what they had mocked. The medal was returned to her with care. Training resumed shortly after, but the air had changed. What they saw now wasn't worn-out gear. It was a legacy carried forward, step by deliberate step. When training resumed, nothing on the schedule had changed, but everything else had. The same drills were called, the same standards enforced, yet the energy among the recruits felt different. No one joked anymore. No one whispered. Every glance toward her boots carried a quiet understanding instead of judgment. The laughter that once followed her steps was gone, replaced by careful silence. She laced the boots again with practiced ease and stood in formation, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. She didn't explain herself further. She didn't look for apologies. The medal remained tucked away, unseen, where it belonged. What mattered wasn't the object, but the discipline it represented. She carried that forward in the way she moved, the way she listened, and the way she endured during the hardest moments of training. When exhaustion stripped away pride, others began to watch her more closely. Not out of curiosity, but out of respect. When she adjusted her stance or paced her breathing, a few followed instinctively. Without meaning to, she became a reference point, not because of a medal, but because of consistency. At the end of the day, one recruit quietly thanked her for pulling him through a rough stretch. She nodded once and said nothing. That was enough. Respect, she had learned, didn't come from being proven right. It came from showing up, day after day, and doing the work without needing recognition. The boots struck the ground in steady rhythm as she walked away, carrying a legacy no longer mocked and a lesson no one there would forget.